What's up, guys? Welcome back to Cryptographics. Today, we're going to be diving in deep with the founder, Dipcatcher, aka Tantonomini, aka Brian. We're going to be going in and asking the big questions to do with team. Is it worth it to take your maxi and mint team with it? What's it going to look like over 15 years for rewards and so on? So without further ado, guys, let me introduce to you. I'm sure you all know who he is. Dipcatcher, my brother. What's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, pleasure to have you back on here. It was funny, we were actually kind of going over some numbers. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? I think it was yesterday, actually. And 2 days ago.
That was Monday.
2 days ago. Wow. It's been that kind of week for me. Yeah,
Right.
2 days ago. And at the end of the stream, or by the end of the conversation, I was like, man, we should just stream this whole damn thing. It was sick. So I'm excited to get that into today's stream and let all you guys who are watching, we got 22 people in here already. You guys are in for a treat. We're going to go super deep today. So before we get in, though, just make sure everyone's comfortable. We got OX Will here. Thanks for showing up, my friend. Seeing many familiar names in here, which is awesome. Dougie Peach. We got Scott McLaren. What's up from Victoria, BC, Canada? My BC brother. What's up? Ted Nelson's in here. I know Ted's been hungry for this, so this is going to be dope for you. No Name Pleb. I see your name everywhere. Doug Griffiths. Hope you ask about the free team the mystery box gets. If it stakes 3, 6, 9, big dilution, what will it actually do? Well, that's a mystery. Well, we're going to star that, and we're going to bring that up because that's a great question. Hexlove says, my biggest fear is as the Hex contract gets breached. If my Hex is in cold storage, do I need to worry? We'll answer that later. I'm going to start as well. Let's see here. Your thing's just asking a bunch of questions. We got Gold Key. What's up, brother? Good to see you in the chat. If you don't know who Gold Key is part number 2 to the two-piece founders that creates Maximus. So Gold Key is a G. Good to see you in the chat, brother. We got Funding Jim in here too. Nice, man. Good to see you. And we got Tin Top, Academatiated. All right. I'm seeing everyone coming in. Awesome. We got a good crew in here today. So before we get started into the deep dive of Maximus DAO and the game theory, for anyone who's watching this either live with us or in the replay, let's just go over a quick synopsis of what is Maximus DAO, what are the perpetuals, and what really is team.
Yeah. So Maximus DAO is broadly just a protocol for the pooling of staked hex. So we kicked it off with Maxi, which was a max length stake pool where people contributed in April 294 million hex to a pool. And then they minted their own Maxi token, which is backed by all the hex principal and then all the yield that it earns from that max length stake. And that coin is fully liquid and fully tradable, gets pretty good volume every day on the markets. And so that was really the start of it. The next iteration that we're going through with this, just because we had so many people asking for more pools, different lengths of pools, and just to kind of keep building on this. And so we're getting ready to launch a set of stake pools called the Perpetuals. That consists of Base, which is a 1-year stake, Trio, which is a 3-year stake, Lucky, which is a 7-year stake, and Decimus, which is a 10-year stake. And what's different about the Perpetuals versus Maxi is that these ones, just as soon as they end, there's a short minting and redemption phase, and then they restart. So this 1-year stake is going to be in the base one is going to be happening every year. The Trio stake is going to be happening every 3 years, Lucky every 7 years, and Deci every 10 years. And so holding a basket of these coins in your portfolio is just like holding a stake ladder where you have, you have the shorter ones like Base and Trio where they earn less interest than the longer ones, but you can redeem that interest on a more regular basis. And so there's a lot less risk involved in those. And then on the longer term, you gain more yield, but you have to tolerate more risk because perhaps during the time that you're holding that longer term token and maybe you need cash, but what if there's a big discount going on in the price? And so, you may not be able to get as much as it's worth at that time. And so you take on more risk, but you earn more yield. So so holding just a bundle of these coins is going to be just like holding a staking ladder. And the users benefit from that because they experience massive gas cost savings, because instead of everyone staking on their own and paying gas on their own, we're just doing it all together. And then also you get more of the bonuses, because if you're staking on your own, you don't experience much of the bigger pays better. Whereas pooling it all together, you get more T shares per hex that you contribute, the larger the pool is. And also you have that benefit of being able to sell at any time without having to bear the early end stake penalty. You have to tolerate the risk that maybe there's not a seller or a buyer at the time you want to sell, but you have that instant liquidity there. So those are the pools, and then to incentivize the growth and promote the advancement of the whole Maximus DAO ecosystem of these stake pools, we're introducing a token called Team. So Team is not a hex stake pool. Team is the Maximus DAO team token. Like if you hold that, you're a team member of Maximus DAO. And Team is incentivized to grow and promote the perpetual pools, because Team gets half of the earnings that only resulted because of the bigger pays better bonus. And so that comes out on the short stakes. It comes out to being about 0.4% of the total value of the end of the stake. And on the larger stakes, it comes out to be around, depending on the numbers, just 1.3%. And so it's actually a very small amount that's shared to Team of the total. And it's only, and so if the perpetual pools are small, Team doesn't get very much. If the perpetual pools are large, Team gets a big payout. And so it's all performance driven, and it only comes from that bigger pays better bonus, because that fee should only be something that it should only be drawn from the earnings that people only got because they participated in the pool. When you stake on your own, you can get longer pays better bonus, but you only get bigger pays better bonus when you're staking in these pools. So we thought that was a fair place to draw that incentive budget for, to pay to Team stakers. And so Team, you have to stake your Team for a whole year to earn your cut of all of the income that came from those 4 pools into the Team contract. So holding Team, it's almost like you have exposure to all the pools, because you're earning a small portion of the earnings from those pools. Not as much as you'd be earning in the pool, but you're still earning something, and you hold Team. So,
and what's happening with the Hedron with those perpetual stakes as well?
Yeah, so the Hedron, unlike Maxi, because Maxi is just like one and done, introducing the re-minting phase, it actually made it really hard to deal with the Hedron. So to make it so that I don't have to introduce complexity into the perpetual contracts and make them as much like Maxi as possible, because that's already audited, it already works, everyone knows it. The Hedron from those also gets paid to Team. And so by now, the Hedron that's earned on new stakes is actually pretty small. And especially for the short stakes, like for base and trio, it is pretty small. And so, so the Hedron is also part of that Team bonus. And so if you're minting if you're in the perpetual pools, you're not getting the Hedron from that stake. In order to get that Hedron, you just would have to stake a little bit of Team, and then you can get some of it back.
Right. So we've got the bigger pays better. We've got the Hedron that's going into the pools. What other incentives are in the Team pools as well, though, that would make you potentially want to part ways with your Maxi? Like, what are the big incentives here?
So, those earnings, those are the only ones that are trustlessly guaranteed. The way the contract works, really any deposits of Hex or any of these tokens, or, there are some other coins that it'll support. Like ETH or USDC, even though there's not a source, there's not a source of returns from that. Those could. So I don't really like to focus or even project that there may be anything. But in any source of income is just distributed amongst the Team stakers. So the main benefits of like the value in holding your Team is, one, just like the speculative aspect of the Team price could go up. And then also the stake rewards, which those are purely based on the performance of the perpetual pools. So if those pools are large, then it's going to be a lot of earnings to Team. If those pools are small, there's not going to be so much earnings to Team. So you're speculating on the team, just the price of team. And so part of that is just the supply and demand dynamics of team.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side of it is you're speculating on the earnings of these pools. So if you think that there's going to be a lot of demand for people to stake in Maximus pools, then those earnings are paid to team stakers, which, and we can talk about all those dynamics, together, how they all work. Yeah.
Totally. Well, one thing I'm thinking of right now, just to kind of start to go towards the deep end here, is what would there's kind of like a counter. I don't know if a counterbalance is the right word here, but basically you have two scenarios. You have one where there is a lot of team stakers, and the rewards will be, let's assume the rewards are set in stone. If the amount of team that's minted is high, the rewards per team are low. If the amount of team is low, the rewards per team gets much higher. And so it really depends on, how like streams like this go, how people really see the potential for teams. And one of the big questions I've seen actually coming up with even in the comments here, I've seen them in other videos I've had, is surrounding the mystery box. So let's talk about things that the mystery box has a potential to do that would basically allow it to maybe participate in some of the pools as a potential. And let's also talk about some of the ways that it has the potential within game theory to help with team or with rewards as well. So we have both sides of the argument coming up here. So let's start with what the mystery box has a potential to do in participation.
Yeah. So to clarify to people who just hearing about this right now for the first time, so during the minting phase, which we should probably talk about the minting of team.
Yes. Right.
So team launches at the same time as all these pools launch. So there's going to be a 21-day period where you can mint base, trio, lucky, or desi. You mint those by minting one hex into one of each of those tokens for the hex stake. And then you can, at the same time, you can also mint team, and you can only mint team with maxi. And so you convert one maxi into one team through the contract in similar fashion to how you do it for base, lucky, trio. It's all the same code. So you're minting one team per one maxi that you pledge into the team contract. At the end of the team minting phase, that maxi so at the end of the team minting phase, something that's called the mystery box, which is technically a smart contract. There's a smart contract that's deployed through the team contract called the mystery box. That gets a copy of all the team that's minted. So say like 1 million maxi is minted into team. The total supply of team is going to be 2 million. So 1 million of those units come from the maxi minters, and then the other million is to the mystery box. And so the mystery box gets that, and then also with the maxi, 20% of the maxi that goes into mint team, that is now burnt. So that increases the payout per maxi token. So that increases the redemption value at the end of the maxi stake, because now there's less maxi for all the hex to be divided amongst. So 20% gets burnt. 30% of the maxi is redistributed back to team stakers during years 3, 6, and 9. There's something called the 3, 6, 9 maxi rebate, where if you're staked in year 3, you get a portion of the maxi. If you're staked in year 6, you get a portion of the maxi. And if you stake in year 9, you get a portion of the maxi. So 30% of the maxi is distributed amongst people that stake in years 3, 6, and 9. Just as a bonus, and fun thing, like Hex Big Payday was awesome. It was one of the best times ever. This is kind of like our, there are 3 of them, and it's really just like if you mint a team, you can get some of your maxi back if you're staked in those years. So 20% burnt, 30% rebate, and then half of the maxi that's converted into team also goes to the mystery box. So the end result of the minting is we have 4 new stake pools: base, trio, lucky, desi. Those are all the hex ones. And then we have the team launch, where the team supply is twice the amount of maxi. And then the burn happens. The rebate is scheduled in a smart contract. It's a trustless smart contract that administers this. And then half of it gets into the mystery box. So at the end, the mystery box will have you know, it'll say it'll have a bunch of team, and then what would that be? And then a quarter of that number in Maxi, because it got half of the amount that was minted, and then
Right. I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it'll end up with a bunch of Maxi and a bunch of team in a mystery
Mhm.
box, and everyone that's participating, by participating, you're acknowledging that you're not pooling funds, and that these funds are not meant, like, there's no business activity or nothing that is going to be financed that's going to deliver profit on your investment. It's like you're not really investing, you're minting your own coins. You're just following the rules of the contract where you're
Mhm.
minting those coins. There should be no expectation of anything from anybody. You can always watch Mr. Bot. It's an address, and there's team and Maxi. There's no big tornado cash thing in there, so like you'll be able to see what happens. There's no
Mhm.
hiding. Everyone, no matter what happens to those coins, you'll be able to follow it. But people should not have any expectation that anything is done to benefit them. And so those coins are just there, and anything can happen with them, and that's part of the game theory is what will happen with them. And so
Exactly.
what I recommend to people to think about the mystery box is, like, what would they do? And there's a lot of different things. People, like, I tweeted the other day, a lot of people had some cool ideas. And so, like, because all things are possible, truly. Because, like,
Right.
on one hand, if you had a bunch of both, you could just cash out immediately and be done. And then you nuke the price for a while. And then, okay, now they have no more Maxi, and people will probably want the Maxi. So people will probably buy that back up because
Mhm.
it's X. And, nuke all the team. Now you can't, it's like the mystery box can't just like print more team. So if the mystery box was to sell other team, like, okay, now you can get the team at a low price and stake it and maybe earn back through hexsmithing. So that's on one far end of the thing, is just that, like, immediate dump.
Right.
So that's on one side of the spectrum. The other
Yep.
side of the spectrum is, what if both of them just hoarded, like
Mhm.
never sold, never moved, all the teams there, so it's not staking, so it's not competing for that stake yield, and it's not competing as a seller in the market, so it's not pushing the price down, and the Maxi isn't competing as a seller, so it's letting the premium run. So
Mhm.
that's on the other far end of the spectrum, is just like insta hoard. I
Yep.
guess even further on the spectrum would be the mystery box burns all the team and all the Maxi. So that would
Right.
be
Yeah.
where
That's the
all
most
the
extreme for
Maxi
sure.
is now, you know like, all the other Maxi is worth more because it's redeemable for more team. The team supply plummets. So that's now a bunch less that could be competing as a staker. So that's on the far end, and so
Mhm.
everything in between there is possible. Maybe there's
Right.
some, liquidity provider element to it, where
Mhm.
or maybe there's some type of swing trading, where maybe, like, if the price of one versus the other is so massive, then maybe it's like selling. What if the team price is just so shockingly high that anyone buying that is probably going to get wrecked? Like,
Mhm.
what if the mystery box, like, kind of helped bring that down? If especially in years 3, 6, 9, when team staking may become so lucrative, where people will just be staked, and if the price is so high, because you don't want people to be top buyers who get wrecked, like, and so maybe the mystery box may sell into massive pumps and then buy into massive dumps, or
Right.
maybe like, what if the mystery box wants to launch other smart contracts and bake in other incentives to stake team, and it kind of has that war chest. What if it wants to get listed on, so, like, all these things are, because anything is truly possible. And
Right.
so there's a lot that can be done, but it is very important that people should have no expectation that anything positive happens for them. Like, and people even shouldn't, like, as soon as you mint Maxi into team, you should remove the frame from your mind that that is your Maxi, because that is not your Maxi anymore. Your team
Mhm.
is your team. That Maxi is no longer your Maxi. And so it's
Mhm.
not like your money, and it's not like a pooled investment.
Mhm.
That transfer is purely the rules of the smart contract that you expressly opted into. And then from there, you can really just watch and see what happens, because that's really all you can do, and it'll all be public. So
Right. 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 So then, well, yeah. When I guess so now that we're talking about that, we've talked about like the extreme. So now in the middle, like there's a lot of comments I'm getting here. One of them, let me see if I can find it here. Let's see. One is from Huddle Dog here talking about the future airdrops. I kind of want to sidestep the mystery box just for a second. I want to answer some of these questions before we get too far ahead here. And one of the questions the Huddle Dog had was, what about future airdrops? Are they accessible if they're airdropped? Now, Huddle Dog, are you referring to specifically airdrops to Maximus holders, or how would that? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to there. If you have an idea, Brian.
Yeah, so he's probably talking about like airdrops to hex stakers or hex holders. And for just the security of the contract, they do not support open-ended smart contract calls, which usually, like when you claim an airdrop, you're calling a smart contract. Right. So there's no open-ended smart contract calling available in the contract. The only functions are the ones that govern the minting and the staking. And so they cannot, so we cannot prepare for unknown functions. Like for instance, the Hedron we were able to prepare for because Hedron launched a couple of weeks before Maxi did. And so we were able to include the Hedron one because by the time we were publishing and deploying Maxi, we were able to audit the Hedron contract, make sure it worked. We had some faith in it that it would work. And we even built it in a way where even if Hedron was to fail in some way, it wouldn't have interrupted how Maxi worked. So that's awesome. So like if we can prepare for that scenario, then we can, but for unknown future airdrops, we just can't. And so the way that I view future airdrops is that is just our gift as the Maximus perpetual communities to everyone else, because now, all those coins that we maybe could have minted, we're just not minting. And so it's like we're hoarding that till death. And so, we're not competing with people who did mint as a seller. And so, we're boosting their value. So that our gift to them. And then also if people really want it, just sell some of your coins and get that coin. If you think it's going to go up, then, and you wished you got it for free, then maybe just break off some of your team staker yield and then buy that coin. And then, so airdrops, you can't really prepare for them. And so I just recommend to people to, if they really want the coin, just go and buy it, and then that's a fine solution.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, or not financial advice, but great idea, I should say.
Yeah.
Another one we have from Pablo Sequeira says, what would make the perpetuals be at a discount versus Hex?
So a couple different scenarios that just can cause discounts in general. Just what if like the personal circumstances of big perpetual holders. So what if like there's one guy who, accounts for like 20% of the total trio pool. And what if he just like needs cash now? Then he just like is selling all of his assets. And so something like that could introduce a discount. The shorter ones are probably less likely to have sustained discount because it's basically like, because if you're to buy a discount on a short-term stake, then that's like as if you were staked and you're earning a higher interest rate for a shorter period of time because you put in 1 hex, you get 1.3 base, and then say base is redeemable at the end for like 11% on top of that. So it's like you got that 30% discount plus that yield. And so say that's like 35% net, then it's like you got like that 35% APY over the time period of when you bought to when the redemption was. So like buying a discount in any of these perpetual pools is basically like going back in time, or not even going back in time. It's like you're shrinking time. It's like you're in like in a wormhole and you're like shrinking the time where you're only staked for 60 days, but you're getting 100 days worth of yield because of just like the discount times the earnings. So buying discounts on the shorter ones will probably get eaten up right away, but the longer ones can absolutely be at a discount. I know we've been spoiled that Maxi's been at a screaming premium for the 3 months it's been around, 3 of the 82 total months. But that's probably not the case. Like there's probably going to be years at a time where there's like a serious discount, especially as the stakes age. And so that could be the case for the longer term ones. And so, discounts can happen it's purely from the holders of those pool tokens selling for whatever reason, whether that's they need cash now, maybe just like the hex price is up so high that like they're willing to sell some of their pool token because measured in dollars, maybe they're up so much where they don't really care that they're giving up some of the yield that it's earned because they're just up so much anyways. And so they're willing to sell the pool. So there's a whole lot of reasons. It's just, more sellers than buyers in any one moment is going to cause a discount.
Right. It's almost, there could almost be like an arbitrage opportunities between those, is like hex dips below certain, the hex base or hex trio or hex lucky prices kind of flip, which kind of will want to pull the price up because they're all, I'm assuming if someone's going to want to cash out, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but someone's probably not going to cash out into hex, then cash out into USDC, and then cash out of crypto. That's the least efficient way to move your money. You get slippage, you get gas fees, you get everything in the process. So I think in the scheme of, taking profits, someone taking profits from base is not going to hurt the price of hex. So really, when people are trying to get hex at the discount or taking advantage of this opportunity, really it's just going to pull the price of hex up when people are selling their base, or if they're buying their base, maybe not. But I can see an opportunity here for the hex price to be pulled up constantly if these prices move too much in the wrong direction necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, because like if I mean, just in general, if there's a lot of trading activity in total, and there's like a lot and there's a lot of people that are using their hex to like acquire more base, for instance, or any of the pools. So that so say a lot of people have limit orders for hex on the hex base pair, where like if it dips below like the redeemable amount, they're buying. All that hex there that's waiting to buy base, that is hex that is being bid on a hex derivative, as opposed to, what if that hex could otherwise be in the USDC liquidity pool bidding on USDC? When hex is bidding on USDC, that's pushing the hex price down. So like attracting a lot of hex liquidity into these perpetual pool markets, that's bullish for the hex price and for the hex yield, because that's hex that's not staked and it's not selling for dollars. It's buying another hex related thing. And then it comes down to the person who's selling their base or any of their pool tokens. What do they do next? Like, do they hold the hex? Do they sell the hex? Do they stake the hex on their own? So like if they sell the hex that they sold with then that pushes the hex price down. If they just stake hex on their own, it's neutral. If they just hold it, it's neutral. So it really comes down to what that person does next. But with these pools, there's only so much at a time that can be sold. So it's like, no one is just, I mean, except for during the minting or redemption phases where you have to come with hex, there's no one that's just like accumulating a lot more of this without having bought it. And so like, there's not like a kind of a perpetual dump that could happen. It's like, as soon as a big seller is done selling, then what? So that's kind of the dynamic of of just the pools in general and how they interact with hex in itself.
Right. Sorry, I'm just noticing the spicy comments coming in here. So I'm just trying to block some users here, but one question that I was having, kind of like to talk about the potentials for Team and Max. I kind of want to go back to this because this is one of the big things on everyone's mind right now. Let's look in this situation. So what do you, right now we're getting paid, I think it was 6.2 hex per T-share per day? Is that I think what it is right now?
Yeah, that's roughly what it is.
So what exactly do you predict over the course of 15 years? Will it be like in terms of just varying degree of amount of hex? Like, do you think that, do you foresee the T-share rate and the payout per T-share climbing to a very high degree over the course of 15 years when Maxi is done? Do you see things kind of being a little more stable? What do you foresee off into the distance for Maxi specifically?
Yeah, so I generally don't have, like, I think that the daily payout per T-share, I think it's going to grow a little bit, but I actually think that that's going to be pretty constant. Part because, like the baseline growth of that, like the total payout, that is growing at a baseline of 3.69% per year. So the total amount that's paid to stakers, that's growing at that like fixed, fairly low amount. It's a little higher now because to account for the big payday, like, so over the course of like from day 351 to day, like, what would that be, like 5,907 or something, when like pretty much 5,555 days after big payday, when once all the big payday hex is already paid out, then the inflation rate goes to that strict 3.69%. So now it's a little bit higher to account for all that. But like, just only considering the 3.69% constant inflation, like that's growing that total payout pool by that rate. And so like the total number of coins paid out to stakers, that's not growing at a massive rate. That's growing at a small 3.69%. It is exponential. It is because it does compound, but that's growing at that rate. And so like that's kind of like the upper bound. And then from there, it's like the question is, what percent of the T shares that are currently staked, as they end, what percent get replenished and at what rate? So like say there's a stake coming due of 100 T shares. So what that means is that as that stake ends, the most that person can get by end staking their hex and with their principal and all their yield, the most they can possibly get is going to be slightly less than 100 T shares. So like 100, if they were to repeat that exact stake. So if they were to do a 100-day stake, they had 100 T shares. If they were to do another 100-day stake, the most they could get would be, 100 T shares minus just whatever that buffer is that we talked about yesterday on the phone. So then it's like there's going to be a number, like the average T share replenishment rate. If it's a positive number, that means that on average, that hex is restaked for longer than the initial stake. But if the hex is not positive or negative, it's going to be either greater than 1 or less than 1. And then, so if it's greater than 1, that's as if people are restaking their hex for longer. Mm-hmm. But if it's less than 1, that means that people are restaking or not restaking their hex, or they're not staking their hex, or they're restaking it for shorter. And so whatever that number is, like that average number across all the pools, that's going to govern how much the daily payout per T share grows or shrinks. Because if that's a greater than 1, meaning people are staking more longer, then that means that the payout per T share is going to decrease by whatever that amount is. So it's got like the thing pushing up the daily payout per T share is the constant 3.69% just total payout, top line thing. And then the thing pushing it down is the growth of the T share pool. And so like if the T share pool grows, meaning people are staking more at a higher rate than they were before, then that's pushing that payout down. So I like to assume that it remains at a constant, 6.22, because that's actually a totally fine assumption to make, that, the total payout pool grows at 3.69% per year. And perhaps the total stake rate is also growing at 3.69% per year. Like that's actually very modest growth. Like that'd probably be underperforming, but because that whole no expectations of anything, like I don't have the expectations that, even though we're doing a lot of stuff to try to grow the stake rate by doing these pools, like I don't have any expectation that like anyone's going to be doing any onboarding work to do anything to drive stake rates up. And so like, so I actually assume that it's going to be pretty modest stake rate growth. And so if there's 3.69% stake rate growth, and then the 3.69% pool, those cancel each other out. And then that would suggest that daily payout per T share remains kind of constant. So assuming modest growth of stake rate and then the constant baseline payout, like those kind of cancel each other out. And so using the current payout as the future payout is actually like that's actually a fine assumption to make. I do think that it can creep up, because I mean, that the share rate increasing also like has an impact on like the total, because now as a new staker, you have to get like more hex than you would have had before to do it, and also at a higher price than what it was like early on in some of these big T share stakes. So there's that also working again that helps drive the T share payout up. When I'm talking about that like restake rate, I'm mainly talking about existing stakers, and the big ones that matter are the ones that were when prices were low and T share rate was low. So the other class of stakers, that where it's harder and harder for them to afford a T share, that helps keep the T share rate total count low, which helps boost payout. But so I think that very modest growth is probably a better way to think about the total earnings across into the future.
So if there's modest earnings coming in, really, and we're comparing team to maxing if it's worth it or not, what is the main potential, I'll say, the main allure for why someone want to part with their max? Because even for me, I really do like the idea of team, because there's so many potentials. And depending on how you look at the payout, whether it's conservative or it's a higher estimate basis. It's Maxi looks pretty damn sick over the 15 years, and that's going to be a hard thing to part ways with. So I'm still really struggling to fully understand why anyone want to part with more than like 5 or 10% maybe at most of their Maxi. So what really are the potentials that could happen that aren't necessarily likely, but are potentials that could happen where someone could benefit more from team than holding Maximus or Maxi?
Yeah. So here, let me share my screen. I'll show you that
Yeah.
spreadsheet. And we can kind of literally actually show actual numbers. But overall, let me see.
Yeah. Susie,
Overall, anything that causes the Maxi payout to increase is also causing the team payout to increase, because
right.
the main driver in the Maxi redemption rate is what is the average daily payout per T-share over 15-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at the earnings that team gets, the multiplier there is what is the daily payout per T-share across that same period of time. So like it's even though Maxi has like, a lower T-share rate than any perpetual pool will ever have, it'll have more T-shares than any of these because of, it'll have the same number of T-shares per hex staked as Deci, but those T-shares are going to be earning over a longer period of time. Whereas like once Deci restarts after 10 years, the T-share rate has been updated. So like if all of the Deci and the earnings, if all the principal plus earnings get restaked, it'll only get roughly the same number of T-shares as it currently had.
Right.
And so like it's locked, like the Maxi one is locked in at a lower rate, whereas Deci, even though, it's the T-share rate is working against these shorter pools. So so like in general, the Maxi has that advantage of being locked in earlier. But like any increase in that average daily payout per T-share that Maxi experiences, all the other pools also experience it. And so like when you're minting Maxi and you're because what you're really comparing is what is the like is say you mint Maxi and held till redemption, how many are you going to get versus if you minted your team with your Maxi and then staked your team for 15 years, what's the value of your team going to be, plus how many hex is it going to earn over that period of time, and how do you compare those two?
Right.
So so that's what I tried to capture in this spreadsheet is, by just toggling some of the numbers, so that you can put in your best guesses for things that are unknown, like what percent of Maxi is going to be minted into team, what percent of the team is going to be staked, how big are these pools going to be, what that daily payout per T-share is going to be, all those numbers that, that dictate whether or not the team holders are going to experience more yield than Maxi holders measured in hex. Like all those things, that's kind of where you have to start, because it's all like, it's totally unpredictable.
Right.
And there's pretty much like there are thresholds where if team stake rate is below some number, then, it like holding team will outperform holding Maxi. But if team is higher, then if team stake rate is higher than some threshold per, the principles of all these stakes, then that earnings are going to be lower. But then it has other forces kind of in there where if the stake rate's really high, that means there's not much supply. And so the team price is going up. And if team price goes up because of the early end stake rules of team that put deflationary pressure on the team supply, the act of team price going up could cause a decrease in the team supply. And so like there's other dynamics at play. And also, team Maxi only lasts 15 years. Team lasts forever. So like even, so it's like you're really comparing to like what you'd be at that first 15-year period. But if you as a person have longer than 15-year time horizons, then, how do you compare those truly head to head? So what I like to approach it as when you're thinking about the earnings, I like to think about what the team would earn over a 15-year period. And so what that means is a team is going to earn some of the yield from 15 base stakes, 5 trio stakes, 2 lucky stakes, and 1 Deci stake. And then there's some years left over on lucky and Deci, which, how do you factor in the pricing in of, what's Deci going to be worth halfway through its second term?
Right. Yeah.
So I don't even include those in that comparison, but there still is, 1 extra year on lucky, and then 5 remainder years on Deci that, in my spreadsheet here, I don't even consider that. I just took how many complete redemption periods are you going to get in that time. And so just for instance, so the, because I can just kind of walk through this whole thing. So
yeah, let's do that.
Here's the initial maxi supply. These may be off because I just went off memory. I think it's somewhat accurate.
I think it's pretty close. Yeah.
And then the current T-share rate. And then here, this is a blue one, so you can modify it. This is the percent of maxi that's minted into team. So this would mean that 29 million maxi was minted into team. And so if that's the case, then that means that the total team supply is going to be twice that number, for the minters and then the mystery box. And then from there, it's like, okay, team staking percentage. And so this number here is just like an average across all these periods. And the team staking percentage is the number of team that is successfully staked for a whole year period. Because team only earns the yield from the perpetuals if it was staked for a whole entire base cycle. Base is like the calendar for the whole system.
Right.
Like when the base stake starts, that's the deadline for locking in your team stake. And then only after the base stake ends can you unlock your team and then earn the bonuses that all came in during that base stake. So base is like the calendar of the whole system. And so this team staking percentage is a measure of what percent of the total team supply is staked for that whole term. And you can't just leave your stake in. You have to actually renew your stake every year. So every year you pretty much have to check in with the contract and roll forward your existing stake. So you must be very active. The whole point is that team stakers are only incentivized to promote the growth of these pools. And so we don't want dead people or people that lost their private keys to be diluting the payment for everyone else. So to prove that you're actively committed to promoting these pools, you have to at least check in once a year. And so, so the team staking percentage just on that alone could be low. What if people miss the deadline and then they're not in that year?
Also, I'm thinking the likelihood of that happening year after year is probably quite high, that a bunch of people either forget or just don't make it or something comes up. So you're never, I can imagine you're never going to have a 100% stake rate or a 50% stake rate, maybe even for the people that are actually holding the remainder. It's not the mystery box, whole team. Well, I can't imagine it's going to be maxed out all the time, year after year. It's probably going to be at least quite a bit lower.
Yeah. And all the team that's in the liquidity pool, that's not staked. All the team that, someone has limit orders with, that's not staked. All the team that's maybe locked in some other unknown, unspoken of, undreamt of contract that's earned, maybe you can short team or maybe you can borrow against your team.
Right.
Maybe, that's not staked in our system. So, this number is a big driver on the final payout, because it's this is the number of team that the earnings are distributed up amongst. So that's the kind of one of the later on ones. And then so here I also showed how many maxi gets burnt as a result of the minting, how much maxi is redistributed. So the burn, that would be 5,886,000. And so what that would effectively do is that would increase the ending redemption rate by about 2%. So the end maxi, so maxi becomes more valuable as a result of the team mint. So that's why it's so hard to decide, because so if you think that, so now that's going to be, that amount, it's going to increase by, by that percentage. And so here, this shows how much maxi is rebated to team stakers. So So like assuming a 40% stake rate and that 10% of maxi minted into team, then that would mean that each team staked, so assuming team was staked for years 3, 6, and 9, the percent you get back would be, so the total amount of maxi that's rebated is going to be 0.38 maxi. So with low stake rates, and there's another spreadsheet that I'm going to pull up here in a second that shows kind of when we talk about like mystery box and staking and those dynamics of the maxi rebate, you'll kind of see where this number, you'll see more information on how this number changes. But with these numbers there, it's like, you as a team staker are getting this maxi back, and then assuming the 10-year DESI average payout is the same as 15, each maxi is going to be redeemable. Like this, under this estimate, it's going to be redeemable for 6.61 hex. And so of the maxi that you got by successfully staking team during the rebates, you're getting an extra 2.479 hex from that. And so that gets lumped in with all the earnings. So these are the 15-year team earnings. So like just with these numbers here and having 150 million in each of these pools, so just maxing out the bigger pays better bonus, the total team yield measured in hex over these 15 years is about 6.02 hex. So you as a team staker, if you stake every year for 15 years, you'll get 6.02. But had you just held your maxi through the whole time, you'd be getting 6.61. And so with these assumptions right there, you get that if this number goes down, so if the team stake rate goes down, there's a point where it increases past that. So the lower the team stake rate is, the higher this 15-year team earnings number is. So there is some threshold where, based on all these things, where team earns more over 15 years, but that basically relies on either really large pools or really small stake rate. So that's kind of how those go. I want to make like a 3-dimensional chart that shows like a map of like, on one axis is, the stake pool principal, on one axis is the team staking rate. And then like on this direction would be something like the percent of maxi minted into team. And then from there, you could kind of see like, okay, if very low maxi minting rates, very low team staking percentage, very high size of perpetual pool, very big team staker payout, or very high maxi minting, very high team staking, very small perpetual pool size, very small team staker payout. And then there's going to be a surface amongst that 3-dimensional plane that is like the threshold where everything above this, they earned more hex by staking team, and everyone below that earned more hex by just holding their maxi. So that's like there's some surface in that 3-dimensional space that is that threshold of like what is more profitable to do if you're only considering hex yield. Because the other factor in there is the team price. Like as a result of, if there's something in team that's earning even close to what maxi's earning, how much is that team going to be worth? Like if you can be earning, say just from these pools, so from these modest pools, and say even the stake rate is pretty high, a 50% stake rate, and you have, and you want to buy team to stake, then each team staked in this environment is earning, I guess over that 15-year period. Well, so let's just assume, so no, I don't know. A better way is to think over that 15-year period, just because, the base repeats every year, trio repeats 5 times, etc. So even with those low amounts, like over a 15-year period, holding team is going to net you 4.8 hex. So like, what does what does that do to the team price? If this is a lucrative opportunity to accumulate hex, and if hex is in high demand, and team is how you earn it, and when you can only earn it by locking the coins, what does that do? Like the buy pressure of buying team, and then the demand, or then the supply pressure reduction from staking, like as those things move together, and the staking is lucrative, what does that do to the team price? The staking pool is becoming popular. It doesn't really boost the maxi, because the maxi it's just the hex. Like maxi is tightly bonded. It's the maxi value is the hex price times the end redeemable value.
Right.
Whereas the team price is you're more like estimating what is the earning potential over the time frame I care about, and then plus what is the value of this token based on its own supply demand, characteristics. And so, so when you're comparing them, comparing that team value appreciation, it's like that's where, because because the amount that team gets from these pools is actually very small. Like it honestly should be a lot higher. And I'm glad no one's really complaining about it, because it is really fair and really small. If more people were complaining about it, I'd probably increase it, because it is very small. It should be higher. It really should. That would make it a lot better. But because people really like that bigger pays better bonus, even though bigger pays better bonus is peanuts compared to longer pays better.
Yeah, of course.
Bigger pays better caps out at 10%. Longer pays better caps out at 20%. If you do what would that be? If you do a half year stake, you're getting the same bonus as maxed out bigger pays better. So like it's tiny. It really is tiny. So that like longer pays better trumps bigger pays better, and bigger pays better is like nothing. And the bigger pays better is the thing that you only get from participating. So like, it is very fair. Like the original idea was full bigger pays better bonus, but because bigger pays better is part of the reason why people like these pools, we thought we'd split the difference. But so the fee in general is very small, and so smaller than what you'd be getting by just being in the pool. But when you're in the pool, you have to make the trade-off where like your value is purely tethered to the hex price, whereas with team, it's like team captures a lot of the upside of the hex price, but because it's not like tightly coupled and it has its own supply and demand, the team can kind of go on its own run, in either direction. You never know. So so just only comparing the head-to-head yield, that's a fine benchmark, but that's only part of the equation. And that's not like that's not the one where there's like many orders of magnitude difference of outcome that can result from it. Because so if you earn 6.6 hex per maxi and only what was that number, like 6.1?
6.02. 6.2.
So say that's like a 10% yield difference. Like, okay, what is that 10% yield difference compared to like something that, team, which has like orders of magnitude move in either direction? And so just the scale of the return is just different. And so if you're optimizing purely on hex yield, then maybe you weight the earnings more than you weight the potential for team price action. But if you're just like viewing it holistically as like, the investment in maxi versus the investment in team, then you kind of have to consider the underlying team price, which is, in this like perpetual tango with the stake rate, with the yield from the pools, the size of the pools. So they're all kind of related in there. And so I think it's very unpredictable.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things too that you brought up earlier to tie this all in is like, these tokens don't go away. They're not 15-year, they're not 10-year tokens, they're not 1-year tokens. They're forever tokens. So I mean, there's so much potential for the upside with price alone, just based on whatever happens in the pools. So I mean, maybe 1 year, who knows? Maybe there are other trustless, decentralized applications that come out that allow you to do other things with your team, or whatever, right? Who knows what's going, or maybe with these base trio lucky desi tokens in the meantime, who knows, right? And so while you're holding these team tokens, they're for over the course of a lifetime, the reward systems that are in place now may change in how much they reward. The token themselves may go up, and there might be other things that come along in the future that ultimately amplify whatever underlying earnings are, or whatever's going on within team itself. So you never really know. And knowing that it's literally for longer than all the stakes, that's actually a really cool proposition, with all the potential there, especially like you were saying with the potential upside, because we don't know what, or downside. The upside is also crazy though, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the, like, the big unknown, and it's a tough decision too. And that's all part of the design. Like it was actually, like, in general, I think that more like value would have gone into the team minting had we made it so that you could mint with Hex, USDC, ETH, kind of like the standard sacrifice. But I actually, doing it by tethering it to Maxi, I think that makes for a stronger ecosystem and a stronger cohort of users in general, because that's a really tough decision to make.
Yeah,
like that's very hard. USDC, who gives a shit? You always get more cash back, but you're not gonna, the Maxi, because it's like a limited subsection of Hex, that makes it really difficult to get rid of. And because we're only 3 months into 82 months of Maxi, and even though we're the current price is around 2 to 1, so it's basically baking in like 3 years of yield. At the current price, it's still like less than half of what I think, this end Maxi redemption rate here estimate. It's still like 1/3 of that, less than 1/3 of the potential end redemption rate. And so, like, it's a very hard decision, but it's actually a good thing, because now what that means is that, like, everyone who mints team is going to be so much more attached to it, because you had to actually endure pretty serious sacrifice, and you had to bear a lot of
trauma,
to get your team, because you had to part with Maxi, and like Maxi's like the best version of Hex. And so, like, it's being a very hard decision, even though that reduced probably the total amount that could go into this. That's more of like that decision alone was more of an investment in the community, because now that's a cohort of people that have really strong resolve around their commitment to being part of team. And maybe those people are less likely to sell their team. And as a result, maybe the team outperforms the Maxi just from that alone. So, like, making it a hard decision was that was, even though that probably reduced the total amount of economic energy that could come into it. I think that it, like, the quality of that economic energy and that quality of user is going to be what brings these pools, on all these estimates here. I'm here doing 150 million. Like, that's like a small, half the size of Maxi. How do we add a zero to all these? How do we get, like, who is the team that's going to drive 1.5 billion Hex into each of these pools? Like, who are those people? Like, how do we attract those people? And I think that like,
that changes everything.
Yeah, literally. Like, that's the big top line driver. Like, and I think that making team something that people really strongly desire, and like a true catalyst for all this, I think that it had to be a really tough decision to actually participate in. So
I think that's a powerful way to do it, because you're kind of, for the people that don't really want to dive in and really think it through, it's too complicated and it is too hard of a decision to want to participate in. So I think if I was to forecast like what might happen, I could almost see a scenario where there's very few team that actually gets minted. And because of that, the rewards for team goes up a little bit, but the demand also goes up as well over time, which causes the price of team to continuously move up in an upward trajectory. And there's only so much team on the market in liquidity pools. And, like, we know how liquidity pools work. And once you start removing one side of the coins a whole lot more than the other side, the price starts going up really quickly, and it gets more difficult to buy a whole coin over time. And so I think that that's actually a really cool way to approach this, and almost stop people in their tracks before they can fully make a move, and really make them think, and really only allow a subset of users to be able to want to commit to something like that, knowing that fortune favors the bold, but it could go against you as well, So I think it's really cool, actually.
Yeah. And it's, and it makes for some crazed like price action because now it's like the maxi. If you can only mint team with maxi, and and because the pools are going to be going in it, because the big, probably a big driver in what that initial stake or the initial team minting rate is, how much hex goes into the perpetuals. Because if that's a massive number, then a lot of people are going to be wanting to mint maxi, and then they're either having to mint maxi or mint with maxi they've already minted, or buy maxi. And what if everyone's minting it and not selling it? And then like what happens to the maxi price at that time? Like, because there's probably going to be a bunch of users that make out like bandits selling into a maxi pump, not minting team, selling their maxi, and maybe they'll sell it like a price close to that 6.61 end redemption rate, and they're like, there you go, like that handful of users, because the more people that sell into it, the more it's going to yoink that price down. But like maybe there's like a handful of users that get lucky in the timing of their sell order, and rather than waiting 15 years to get 6.6 hex per their maxi, they got it in 4 months. So
right, that'd be crazy.
So like, there's that opportunity for that class of maxi seller. But then it's like, okay, they got their 6.6 hex right there, but now like, okay, what if then they don't mint team, then maybe a little bit of time goes by, and what if the team price is now 6 maxi? Then it's like, okay, they like, they captured that gain on that side of it. But then like, what if team staking becomes very lucrative, and maybe not a lot of people staked, or not a lot of people minted, and a lot more people. And that's kind of the other side of making it where like you can only mint with maxi, is that like now it's like a clear benchmark. If you held maxi and you didn't mint, now forever you're going to be always looking at that team price chart. You're going to be like, oh my god, wake up, am I outperforming team?
Every single day.
A lot of people that have dry powder on the sideline, a benchmark to look at, and perhaps at one point in time, maybe the team is in like maybe there's a long-standing team bear market, and now that person can get 2 team per maxi. Like, so there's that chance for that buyer. Then that'd be a good opportunity for that person. But what if that time never comes, and what if like team never trades below 1 maxi, and then you're there sitting in regret, and then like as like reality sets in, now that person who could have minted now turns into like a FOMO buyer. And like, what does the FOMO buyer do to the team price?
Right, exactly. Because they're probably not going to sell it anytime soon.
Yeah. And especially like, because now you like, in order to get the same ROI on the team, so say you're buying at a 2-to-1 rate. Now, in order for you to experience like 100% gain on your maxi, you have to wait for that extra 100% on top of the original one. And so your threshold for where you sell could increase. And the more people that have a very high threshold of when they'll tolerate selling, like that's what really boosts the price. Because like, even if price is going up, they're not selling because it's not at their threshold yet. So I think having those people on the sideline and giving the opportunity for reality to set in, and that regret to start eat into them, I think that's bullish for the team price.
I agree.
And so making it a really hard decision, where a lot of people aren't going to mint team because it's such a hard decision. It is, because there's kind of no way to go wrong, right? Unless, no, there's a way to go wrong. If you mint team and team nukes,
exactly, that's very wrong.
And there being no demand for team, no demand for the perpetual pools, then those people will experience loss, because why would you be buying team if there's no yield from it? Right. And there's no like evidence there's going to be like continued demand for it. And so, maybe, so like that's the way it can go wrong. But then also, there's the chance that the team staking, because these pools are not bounded by anything related to maxi. Like they can grow, they're bounded by the total hex supply.
Right.
So these pools can grow, so that yield has no upside cap, whereas the maxi upside cap is really hex price, which all of our stuff benefits from. So it's like a moot point, times the daily payout, which is tied to us, or not tied to us because it's all us, but tied to the pools. But any increase in that payout is also increasing the payout for teams. So like the things that work in Maxi's upside also work in teams upside. And although none of these pools are earning at the same rate that Maxi is, team becoming more valuable of a staking opportunity. Like if it becomes 50% more valuable of a staking opportunity, that probably leads to more than 50% increase in the team price, because things happening. It's like there's buyers, and like, when you when you're buying in a liquidity pool, if you're doubling the buy side, you're squaring the price. Just like how the math on the symmetrical liquidity pools works, where like, you double the liquidity pool buy side, you're squaring the price. It's kind of works like that, where like, the net amount of buy pressure that it introduces does more than it increases the price by a higher amount than that. And because if they're only buying for the staking, it's like that's a buyer where the order of their operations are, they're buying unstaked team, so they're boosting the team price. Then they're staking their team, so that team, which could have been sold at any time, is now staked, so it's locked. You can unstake and bear the penalty, but now that team that was for sale in the liquidity pool is now burnt, ceases to exist. And so now that's like a little bit less pressure for the next buyer to like be pushing the price down against the next buyer who's like pushing it up. And so like, as the staking opportunity becomes more lucrative, it introduces more buy pressure and reduces sell pressure at the same time. So what is that? What does that do? So that's kind of, all those things go into it, where it's, that's what makes it so unpredictable. And the more uncertainty there is, then the more opportunity there is, because
absolutely,
if it was 100% certain what the end time earnings are going to be,
everyone would do it.
Then it'd be already priced in.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
There's huge unknowns here. That's like what can lead to the order of magnitude moves in either direction. If people way overestimate, then price can go down 90%. If they way underestimate, price can go up 10x, and that's like the same move, So
absolutely,
there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, tons of unknowns. And to kind of rein this in a little bit, so there's not just a ton of unknowns. So I think a cool way to do this would be to, first of all, I want to check in with chat real quick and just make sure you guys are aware. I am paying attention. If you guys have any actual questions regarding where we're in this conversation, please throw them in. We'll probably stream for maybe another 20 minutes tops here, and then we'll hop off. But if you guys have any other questions on anything we've talked about, throw them in the chat. We're going to go on kind of lead off of what we just said, or what you're just talking about with all these unknowns. And let's rein it into questions that you should ask yourself if you think you should or shouldn't do it. What are the big questions you should be asking yourself in order to kind of weigh out whether it is or isn't worth it for you to participate in team staking?
Yeah. So, I mean, big question is, if you think the perpetual pools are going to be successful, then you'll probably want to mint some team. Also, if you're going to participate in the pools, which we didn't even talk about with like the, the earnings, it's like a way that you can like reclaim that part of the bigger pays better bonus that your portion of the perpetual pool paid to team stakers.
It's a good point.
If
actually,
you have, so say like you own 1% of the base pool, and if you represent 1% of the team staker class, then you're getting back all of the big payday bonus that that your part of base shared the team. So from your perspective, you got the full bigger pays better bonus. But also that doesn't even factor in trio, lucky, desi. So say, those ones are also earning and paying you. Then from your perspective, maybe you experience a higher than 10% bigger pays better bonus, because you're staked in team, you're earning bigger pays better bonuses from pools that you didn't participate in. And so like all the extra hex that you got maybe is greater than the total amount that was paid from, through that bigger pays better bonus sharing. So staking team is good for people that are joining any of the pools, because you just get to capture some upside from all of them. If you think that if you like the stake pooling and you want to promote it, and because the more people you can get to join these pools, the more your stake team's going to be worth, because it's going to be earning more. Then it has that incentive there. So I think that's the class of users that I'm really hoping join in a big way are the people that are actually in the pools.
Right.
Because that's one way to decide like what do you do. Like, okay, you like honestly, you should hold all of these, like because it's like then you have a whole spread of risk from base, which is like the least risky. That's basically holding liquid hex all the way up, all the way up to maxi. Like so, base is the least risky, most certain. Team is the most risky, least certain. And then, between base, trio, lucky, desi, and maxi, then you have that spread across that whole period of time. You have regular redemption windows that basically just like lock the price to whatever that new redemption rate is. And then you have, your risk spread out over time. And then no matter what market condition it's in, maybe there's something for you to be able to capitalize on. So, that's an important use case, is just like using all of them to really, the bottom line is you're getting more hex. Holding any of the coins, you're getting more hex. So anyone that wants to do that, these are the good opportunities where, the pools, that's just an alternative to staking on your own. Like unless you have more than like 25K, I would recommend just doing these pools, because you're going to get more, you're getting more T-shares per hex staked if you consider all the gas fees you have to pay. So that alone is a big benefit for those pools. Team is a way for you to get some exposure to all of them and take on some risk that's not just tied to hex, because there's so much demand for people. Everyone wants to speculate on everything. Like there's so much, like all the people that saw the 10,000x move in the hex price, they didn't capture the 10,000x move, but they want that 10,000x move. Those people are willing to tolerate higher and higher risks so that they can capture that 10,000x move. So team is like that opportunity where it's like related. It's in an ecosystem that you're familiar with. It's like rooted in. It's not like you're just like betting on which coin is going to be hot, and that you're going to have like a good chance to sell into. It's like this one there. There's intrinsic value baked in through the earnings, and then there's like the extrinsic value that can like really make the price run. And so and because it's like a new high risk, a lot of unknowns, like this can hopefully be something that can fulfill that demand for just taking on super high risk with like what could be dog shit, like that people just want those high gains by levering up the risk. Like this is like the solution there, because the stake pools, like all things considered, if you're comparing it versus hex alone, I mean, hex has a lot of risk, but like the stake pools are no riskier than hex. And so, it's not really, you're not really levering up your risk by holding any of the pools, but you can lever up your risk by holding team. So, so like across all of these, there's something for everybody. And then just like holding this portfolio could be, that can give you a bunch of stuff, from the very low risk base to the very high risk team and everything in between.
Right. Sweet. I love the answer. Yeah. I think one of the interesting things, the way you're putting it too, is I think Trio is actually going to have quite a lot of people. I could see Trio being a very popular token for the first 9 years, because, you're kind of, you're setting your hex a little further off in the future. You're getting a little bit more gains in yield already. Plus, if you're a team staker, then you're getting the 369 rebate. Plus, you're also getting the additional 50% of the bigger pays better bonus that you wouldn't have had if you're not in Trio. So really, Trio, I think, is one of the more special ones for the first decade, at least in my opinion. If you're holding team, that seems like the ticket to me, at least. I
think so too. I mean, that Trio lines up really nicely with just like the harmonics of it.
I like that. The harmonics of it. I like that.
The one that really, like, it's like I love all of them, and I'll definitely participate in all of them. I wish I had more hex so I could be in more of these. But the lucky to me is that I think there's some magic in lucky, because it's like long enough to where there's like a lot of risk and like there's some blue sky to paint in, but then short enough to like be somewhat certain over time. And so like I mean, obviously, who knows what can happen? I have no control over any like, I think that lucky could have a lot of premium discount volatility very quickly, because of just like it's like trio and base. It's like you can basically assume what the daily payout's going to be over the next 3 years, but over 7 years, it's kind of hard.
Mm-hmm.
And
Gets murky real fast.
but it's shorter than like the 10 or the 15-year one. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I think Lucky that I think there's gonna be some magic in Lucky. I mean, there's gonna be magic in all of them, but I really like Lucky just because it's like
Yeah.
kind of a wild card. It's like it's after in between the 6 and the 9
Mm-hmm.
rebate, and like each one gets bigger. It's like they double, and like those rebates double in size each time. And so it's like right in between there. Who knows what the general crypto market's going to be like in 7 years? That's a big unknown there. So
Huge
like,
unknown, especially at this point with what we're seeing in the market right now. It's a lot of
like,
unknowns.
who knows what crazy, we could go through like 4 unique crypto bull and bear cycles in that time. Like,
yeah, exactly.
things are moving fast. So, there's a lot there. And then Deci, I think could be kind of like Maxi in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like same bigger pace or same longer pace better. Shorter is still very long, and because there's not like a 12 or a 13-year one,
Mm-hmm.
I think Deci could be really popular as well. But then like base and tree, like I mean we didn't even talk about like the whole like liquidity providing across these pairs. Like base could be
Right.
very popular just for people that want to provide liquidity on like a base trio or a base Lucky or a base Deci pair.
Right.
And people that want to provide liquidity on base hex. And also, I mean, base, like, it's really it's basically like holding liquid hex. Like, because it's a 1-year stake period, anytime price gets way above what it's probably going to earn, probably going to be selling into it. Anytime
Mm-hmm.
price gets below, probably going to be people needing to buy it. And so base could be very liquid. And because it's very liquid, it could keep a very tight price range as it kind of like ratchets up from redemption rate to redemption rate. And
Right. I can see
so
that.
that to me is like a really strong alternative to holding liquid hex, because you're not getting diluted by just like the daily payouts every day. You're
Mm-hmm.
earning the dilution. You're out earning the
Mm-hmm.
inflation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's redeemable in such a short period of time where there's probably going to be a lot of liquidity, or at least a lot of buyers at like pretty close to the price, to the redemption value. And
Mm-hmm.
so it will probably be more liquid than the others. And so if you're concerned with liquidity, and that would cause you to hold liquid hex instead of staking your hex. I think that like a lot of the liquid hex that people hold just to potentially sell if they need to, and they don't worry about the yield. Base, I think, is a really good solution for that class of user.
Yeah, I think the one cool thing that's coming to mind now for me is like, you're kind of cheating the system because, like we said, if you've been here from the beginning, if you have, thank you, and also the like, and let's get the likes up on this video real quick. But one of the things we touched on in the beginning is that the T-share, the mechanisms in Hex only allows you to stake the exact amount of T-shares you had previously and no more. If you restake everything at the current rate that your share or your stake expires at. But what I'm seeing is these stakes kind of allow you to get ahead of what you would have normally had you just staked by yourself. So you'll always be able to get a little bit more T-shares actually by staking with base year after year than you would be by staking alone or with Trio or Lucky or Deci. Doesn't matter. So it's actually really, you are cheating the system with these a bit. And I think it's going to be very lucrative once a lot more people that are maybe about to get into Hex find out that there are these perpetual pools as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, I mean, they can be like their own unique like selling points where like
right.
now there's because right now it's like when you're trying to onboard people into Hex, it's like there's just Hex there, but now it's like there's like 4 new tokens and 4 new brands and 4 new like messages that you can reach people with to like onboard them into Hex, via these pools. And
right.
so I think that like because the staking is just done for you, it's like rather than like the sales pitch for Hex being, okay, first buy your Hex and then decide how you're going to stake, make sure you have ETH to do the gas, and then stake. And then once your stake ends, make sure you tend to it within 2 weeks or else you'll start bleeding out. Now there's a a coin where you can just buy, and by buying it, it's like you get the hex that's underlying it, and you're locked into a stake schedule, and you don't have to worry about the end staking or managing the stake. It'll just
Mhm.
go and grow from there for you, and you can sell it anytime. And so like all the things that like people hesitate with like hex, like fees, inability to sell if you need to,
Mhm.
like all those things that people, that kind of, you have to answer to in the sales pitch,
Mhm.
those are kind of alleviated through this. And so maybe these pools make hex better, just improve the sales pitch of hex, because there's now like these simple solutions that provide savings to user, provide other benefits to staking on your own, and you're still capturing the upside of hex.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, in my experience, maybe this is yours for all you in chat, all you watching right now that are watching right now. Maybe you've experienced this as well. If you tried to talk to people about hex, and you say you got to lock up your coins for a year to 15 or a day to 15 years, immediately a lot of people are like, whoa, I don't want to, like, I can't access them, move them around my wallet. And this is one of the things that I'm really enjoying about what's going on with Maximus and the Perpetuals and team, as well as going on with like Hedron and Icosa. I mean, all these things that are being these great products that are being built on top of Hex are kind of, they're alleviating some of the things that gave people resistance to Hex initially. And I think over time, that's just going to allow things like the HSIs for Hedron is going to be huge. The perpetual pools for Maximus is going to be absolutely huge. The team's going to be like, all these things together are going to alleviate the symptoms or people not wanting to participate in the Hex ecosystem. They have a way to get in, a way to get out. And ultimately too, I think it actually supports the system even better, because now you're not incentivizing, like, let's say someone who's kind of on the edge, right? They are not sure if they want to get into Hex, but they get in, they make a 5-year stake. And after 2.5 years, they're like, I'm taking my principal out. Well, yeah, sure. The yield's gone. We get the yield if we're staked, right? But also that person is probably going to sell the price of Hex down, and that hurts the price of Hex ultimately. So instead, what we're allowing people to do, which I think is amazing, is to take other tokens and sell those down and not actually hurt the price of Hex and not hurt the core of the entire system, which I got to give kudos to you for creating this, you and both Gold Key, because I think these are amazing additions to the ecosystem. And I'm very happy to see that they're alive, and I can't wait to see where they're going to go.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's really, we think that this can really provide like a catalyst for like the next wave of Hex's growth. We've kind of had like the initial like kind of like 0 to 1 moment in Hex, where Hex went from like obscure asset, and then it kind of, survived through its first cycle.
Yep.
And so kind of, it's kind of come burst on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
And now like, how do we take it from that next like 1 to 10?
Right.
And then from the next 10 to 100? And then like, how do we keep growing this by orders of magnitude? And I think that's really where like the importance of all this is that by enhancing the financial utility of Hex, that unlocks other use cases or other markets that can participate. And that's like how we achieve like big stepwise moves in like the use of Hex, and like how many people are buying Hex with new assets coming in and not selling that Hex for many years. Like that's kind of what it all represents.
And I love it. And I think it's a great place actually to end the stream. I want to thank you, Brian, for coming on. This has been great. It's great to demystify a lot of these things about team and Maxi. And I know it's still unclear intentionally, but I hope for everyone that's been watching, I hope you've had some questions answered or been given some proper ways to frame how you view team and Maxi. And I hope now you're just as excited as I am to see this all unfold. And speaking of that, real quick before we go, when are we expecting the launch of the perpetual pools and team roughly? I know there's a few things on the checklist still that I saw on Twitter that need to get done. So when can we expect that?
Yeah. So I was trying to get the audit started like by the start of this month, but we did a preliminary test, and I found some issues with the staking system. So with the team staking system. So I basically didn't rebuild it, but I had to modify how it accounted for, regular stakes versus rolled forward and all the penalties. So I've fixed that. And now I'm just like doing some pretty thorough like testing of just like the contract itself. And then we'll do like a full test of everything The
Amazing.
perpetuals are done, but the team
awesome.
staking, which launches the perpetuals, that's still, that's still in the works, just because of the things that I picked up on that I need to fix about the team staking.
Yeah.
So we'll probably start a test, hopefully within 2 weeks. That 2 week funny magic, but like,
Yep.
it very well could be done. This is just the last part that needs to be fixed is the team staking.
Right.
And so I'm really trying to get this out ASAP,
Amazing.
So hopefully in 2 weeks we can start a full test, and that test will be on a contract that's fully complete. So while we're doing like our user test, that's the contract that will be going through audit. So I already have the auditors lined up, but it's just like I told them wasn't ready. So, so that's like the next benchmark is, just resolving this issue with the team staking, which actually made it a lot better. Like compared to the initial rule set, kind of the rules, like just the dynamics that were introduced because of this, major pump-mental on the team, just team price in general. So this round of preliminary testing actually made the team staking a lot better. So I'm glad I figured this stuff out, and it prevented something that could have caused like a weird inflation bug. So the staking is going to be fully ironed out, and then we'll go through with like the testing. And then once everything's good, we have successful user testing, everyone's clear on how it all works, audits come back, then it'll be go time. There'll be no more waiting. So
amazing. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it all. 2 weeks. Honestly, at this point, we're waiting for Pulse Chain for how long now? 2 weeks sounds like a breeze to me. I don't know about you guys. Yeah. And as Hex Huddle says, 2 weeks sounds great. Thanks. So
yeah. And I saw some people that asked some questions in the chat. So I'm actually gonna I'll probably just hop on a stream on my channel.
Sure.
And to if anyone wants to hop on there and ask any questions, check out me on YouTube. Just search Dipcatcher on YouTube here in a couple of minutes. And so if any questions that we didn't get to, I'll just be on there. And we're thinking of doing a Twitter Spaces too this evening. So if you have any questions, if you're watching this, if you have any questions, I'll still be on somewhere, for more time this evening. So, check it out there.
Love it. Love the grind. Appreciate you guys always being so available and always doing spaces and in the Telegram groups and everything. It is really awesome. So again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. Thank you to everyone in chat that's still here. And guys, if you haven't already, please smash that like button. I have both the Maximus.cash website in the link in the description. I think I have the Telegram group as well if you want to go in there and ask some questions. And yeah, without further ado, guys, thank you so much for being here. We're going to end the stream now. I'm going to toss up the little video again. And I'll chat with you in the green room there, brother.
All right. Thanks.
All right, guys. Have a great night. Peace.